So welcome to episode 11 of Dusty. In this episode I'm going to be replacing all the old steering ball joints with some new ones. So I've got a ball joint kit from Terrain Tamer. Now this has got all the ends for the tie rod, the relay rod, the drag link. It's all greasable, they're all new, stronger than original. So we get to installing these. So I'm going to start on the relay rod. I've already got this one out from doing the swivel hubs. So we'll just undo the clamps on the end, unscrew the ball joints and screw some new ones in. So now we have to choose what ball joint goes where. So this biggest one here goes to the left side of the tie rod. This one here goes to the right side of the tie rod. This one here goes to the drag link, because it's a left hand thread and it actually won't thread into the right side of our tie rod. And then these two here are for our tie rod. But before we go putting them on, I want to remove these little plugs out of the back and replace them with the grease fittings that they give you. So then you get a little grease fitting that just replaces that plug. You can just screw that in. So this one's a right-handed thread and that will only fit into one side of our relay rod, because it's a right-handed thread. And then if we go to the other side, this other ball joint, which is the left-handed thread, will screw into the other side. And then we have to measure from the center of this ball joint to the center of the other ball joint and get the distance right, and then we can put the clamps in and clamp it all up. So now with our relay rods in and the bolts for the clamps just slightly done up, we have to measure it, and it has to be 842 mil from the center of each ball joint. So that's just over 150. I'll screw that one in one and screw that one in a bit and give it another measure, and I'd call that 842. Now the reason the two ends have to be 90 degrees from each other is because this end has to go into the center arm, which is upright, and then the left hand side has to go into this ball joint down there. So that's why they sort of have to be 90 degrees. But before we tighten all these down, we have to take off the tie rod and replace those ends. Loosen those off. I take the bolt out because I just give it a wire wheel and clean it up. And then you get a big spanner and you just undo it. Don't know if this one's left hand or right hand. So now we have to measure from end to end again. Now it has to be 1205 millimeters for the tie rod. So if we get that roughly on there and then bring it across, that's 1205, bang on. Now they have to be in line with each other because they sit on the car like this, not 90 degrees to each other. This clamp needs to be moved down a bit. So now we've got to put it back on the 40, put the passenger side in first, and just put one of those nuts on to hold it. So now for the relay rod, there's a little bit of anti-seize on the ends. I'm going to chuck that in. Chuck that in there. Line that one up. So I've gone to put this on and you can see the two clamps kind of clash. So we have to adjust this rod. But we have to adjust it anyway because these slots up the top, we want them down the bottom so they don't fill up with mud and water. So we'll just undo these clamps. Righto, so I've got all the clamps in the right spot. Now this will need a wheel alignment once I get it on the road because it's definitely not going to be perfect like this. But we just got to make sure nothing clashes when we go full lock. Nothing over there. Go back this way. Nothing there. Nothing that side either. Also, before we tighten it all down, we want the ball joints either up or down on each end. So like, what I mean by that is you can see that one's tilted like that way, and you want this side to be the same, tilted up that way. So now for our drag link, I'm going to do it on the car. I'm just going to pull the pin out. Then get this undone. So now before we take it out the whole way, I'm just going to undo the clamp. And then we can get a hammer and hit that out. We might have to hit in the side, we might have to give it some heat, but we'll just try smacking it out first. So after a fair bit of smacking, I got it out. Now we just have to unwind that and then put the new one in. So doing the ball joint is much the same as doing all the rest of them. Just get a spanner on the end and undo it. Now some anti-seize on the threads again and screw it back in. So now we have to measure it. I forgot to put the grease nipple in this, but I can put that in after. But it has to be 855mm from the centre of that grease nipple to the centre of this one. And that's 865, so it has to come in a few turns. And that's 855 roughly. So now we can tighten the clamp up and put a nut on the end. So now we have to torque it all down to about 100 Newton meters. So that's the steering now done. I put all the split pins through the nuts. They're not going to go anywhere. We've got all new ball joints, so the steering's going to be pretty solid now.